Hi and welcome everyone, I'm Friar Tuck and this is my epoch. So today's video is going to be on how do you help the homeless. There's a lot of people that try and do a lot of different things, but as somebody who's been chronically homeless off and on in the streets in different parts of the country, I can tell you that there is no blanket answer of what it is that you can do to help the homeless. I'll tell you a story that happened a couple nights ago. So some girls that are in college, they see the homeless issue, they want to do something to help. So the first thing that comes to mind is, let me go ahead and go get them food. They went and got us Jimmy John's, and that was all well and good and everything else like that. But there's such an abundance of food around here that all I did was just eat to gorge myself, essentially. But you know, I've also been in areas where they feed like 3 times a week. I've been in areas where they feed once a day. I've been in areas where they don't feed at all. And you know, I've been in areas where they have great resources and where they don't have resources at all. And so to be able to answer this question it's going to be a little bit drawn out in the sense that to get to the point, but you'll hear me getting to the point as time goes along. Okay, so what I always like to tell people is get to know your homeless person. If you sit there, you can't help everybody, okay? You can want to help everybody, but you can't help everybody. You can only help those that you can afford to help. And you know, helping one person is just as good as helping 500 people, because it's the thought and the kindness that actually matters. So don't be discouraged in thinking, oh, well, I need to go help a couple of people, or I need to go help as many people as I can, and you can only help 1 or 2 people at a time. But the thing is if you do some precision help where you know what it is that the person needs, then you are able to do more good in a quicker amount of time than it would be if you just went and decided your own blanket solution. You know, because for example, like the ladies that gave away food, I actually said, hey, I got a channel, I talk about this type of stuff. I'm probably going to end up doing a video on this, because a lot of people, they want to help, but they just don't know exactly how to help. And so the easiest way to do this is find a homeless person that you can connect with, because, you know, we all have different personalities. We're all human, just like you. And I'm sure that there's a couple of us out here that you could make really good friends with, that you could sit there, have a conversation with, and they'll have a conversation back with you. Now, there are those out there that are like, gimme, 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 gimme. Those are the ones that it doesn't matter how much you help them, you're not actually helping them. But there are quite a few and quite a lot out here that don't really ask for much or anything, and just try and get by on their own without really, sacrificing their pride and going and getting help or whatever it may be. There's different reasons, different strokes for different folks, okay? So getting to know your homeless person is important. Finding somebody that you can interact with and that you can talk with. I have had this happen to me a couple of times over the years, where I had a guy, he would stop by every night after he got off work. He'd check in on me, see how I was doing. You know, that meant more to me than a $20 bill. That meant more to me than all the food that you could give me. That meant more to me than having a roof over my head, because in a time when you're looked at as the scourge of the earth by society, to have somebody to see you and to just acknowledge that you exist, and not only that, but they actually care enough to make sure that you're doing okay. It's something that, you know, is heartfelt. He would sit back, he'd talk with me for 10, 15, 20 minutes on his way home, just see how I was doing, started up a conversation. I never asked him for anything, because he was giving me everything that I actually needed, which was, at that time, I needed friendship, because resources and food were abundant in Portland. And, you know, a lot of it has to go with the culture as well, is that when I'm in more liberal areas, I tend to get more precision help, or at least people that will communicate with me and find out what it is that I need, versus in a conservative area, they'll just come up and they'll give you a blanket and say, okay, I'm right with Christ, knowing full well that they may not have done anything to help that individual except for weigh them down. Because you got to realize, we got to carry our house on our back. So when you come and bring us this big old heavy blanket, or this big old blanket, and we're carrying around a backpack, how do you expect us to carry it? And then not only that, if we drape it around us like what some people do, now we get looked at even worse by society. So did you actually help by giving us a blanket? Not necessarily. Now, if the individual needed a blanket, then, you know, then that would be great. But most of what happens is these big blankets that people keep coming by and giving is that they get tossed in a bush, they get smelly and ratty, and then they get thrown away, and they don't last but maybe a week or two. Okay, there are other things that you could do as an individual to be able to help an individual. Okay, so if you really want to help the homeless, the only real thing that you can do that will allow you to make an informed and educated decision that will actually make an impact is to get to know the individual. All homeless people will have a conversation with you. Those that are super crazy may not. Those that are twacked out may not. But the average homeless person will at least acknowledge you and have a conversation. And you know, the more people that do that, the easier that this journey becomes. Okay. So for me, if somebody were to sit back and talk to me, I wouldn't be saying I need food. I wouldn't be saying I need money. What I would be saying is I need a new backpack and I need a sleeping bag to be able to weather the storm here. And, you know, maybe I need some winter clothes if you've got anything that fits me. Now, is that going to require a lot of money from you? Is that going to require stuff from you? No, not really, because you may have a 65 or a 90 liter backpack already, you know, in storage that you just don't use. And so, hey, I've got an extra one here. You can have it. You know, a sleeping bag. It may be something that's older and you were thinking about going and getting a new one to begin with. Well, you know, offer up the sleeping bag. But the thing is if somebody just comes by and gives me food, or comes by and gives me $1, $5, or $20, it's not really going to go towards what it is that I need, because when you get cash out here, it goes towards your immediate sustenance. You know, when you're housed up, if you want a pack of cigarettes, you go buy a pack of cigarettes. When you're homeless, you only get a pack of cigarettes if you have the money for it. You know, a good meal. You know, they feed good here in Cincinnati, but most places they don't. So, you know, you get $10, you're gonna go get yourself a fat and happy meal, because you know you want to make sure you can eat, because you're not sure when the next time is that you're gonna get a good meal. And yes, that helps out in the moment, but you know, it goes back to the adage by JFK. You can teach a man you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or you can teach a man to fish and feed him for life. And the thing is that $10 is just feeding a guy for a day. You know, giving him, you know, seeing what actual help he needs. You know, I need an address so that I can do the address verification, so I can keep doing plasma. You know, does that come out of pocket for you? Does that cost you anything extra? No, it does not. But these are all specific needs that will help me accomplish the goals in which I'm trying to accomplish. And so this is why I say that you need to talk to the individual. Now, some of them, they're just gone in their drug addiction and all they want is money so that they can go buy dope. And that's up to you whether or not you want to contribute to that, or whether you like the guy enough to where, you know, here's $10, go get yourself a dime bag, okay, of whatever it is that they do. You might like that person enough to where it just doesn't bother you. When I met Puckett in Gainesville, I generally don't deal with those that are under the influence, but you know, he had a soul. He still was a human being, and he was a good person, and I really liked him. So you know what? I helped him out. I even went and bought him dope once, just because you know, he needed it. Actually, I didn't buy it for him. I gave him the money to go get it himself. But yeah, because I wouldn't go do that. But the thing is when you get to know somebody, you get to see past the end result, because what ends up happening out here is either you go through a fit of depression because you've lost everything, you were attached to it, and just the large loss is going to send you into a fit of depression, which opens you up to drugs and alcohol. Or you got injured and so therefore you're stuck out here, you get in depression, again, drugs or alcohol. Or you get given the wrong medication, like a lot of people do, like a whole generation of tweakers that was created out of the ADHD medication, because they were giving it to people that didn't even have a proper medical diagnosis. Okay, so you have a lot of reasons, but what you're seeing when you sit there and say, oh, I see the drugs, I don't like the drugs, is you're seeing the end result, you're seeing the effect, but not understanding the cause. There's a lot of things that leads a person to this lifestyle. It's not like all of a sudden you wake up one day and go, yes, I want to do heroin. Who in their right mind wants to do heroin? I mean, it's a shameful thing, but yet, circumstance, you get down, you get in that moment where you're just like, I don't care anymore. And when you get to that moment where I don't care, you end up doing things that you wouldn't normally do. Anything from robbing somebody to doing drugs that you thought you would never do in your lifetime. It happens to everybody out here, myself included. Okay, I'm not immune to this. I experimented a little bit, but and I did things that I never thought I would actually do, because I never even wanted to do, I didn't want to have an addiction. I saw what it did to members of my family, and I didn't want to deal with it on my own. Okay, so again, if you want to help the homeless, it's not some carte blanche, blanket statement. What it is you taking a moment and doing your due diligence, getting to know the person and finding out how you can help them. And just because you think you know how to help them doesn't necessarily mean you know how to help them. It still has to be their choice. See, a lot of what happens in the judicial system is they will pick you up, put you in jail, and say, okay, we caught you with crack, right? Well, then they send you to drug court. Well, you have to go to rehab. Well, the person wasn't ready for rehab, isn't even in the right mind for rehab. But yet, because the system says, oh, well, you need to go to rehab, it sends the person to rehab. Is it doing that person any good? No, because as soon as they get out and they fulfill their commitment so that they can get their freedom back, they're right back to doing what it was that they were doing, because they weren't in the mood to quit to begin with. You have to reach a certain point in your life when you're like, okay, I'm done. I've reached the bottom. I don't want to do this anymore. And until you reach that point, you're not going to stop. So to be able to force your will on someone else is doing nothing other than, just making yourself look good when you're really not doing anything positive. We could talk about how drug court works, but is it really working? Is it helping anybody? No, it's not. And this is just the types of things that you really got to take into account. It's just because you think you're helping somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you're helping them. You have to get them on board. They have to want it as much as you are wanting to give it. In the same way that the guy I met in Chattanooga, he wanted to help and I wanted to help, but there were certain personality defects between the two of us that we just didn't get along. I did not like him. He liked me, but I did not like him. And the thing is that may happen, and so you've got to be willing to run into those obstacles. The person has to want the help. You can't just sit there and say, oh, well, this is what you need, so therefore we're going to do this for you. Well, once you take somebody's agency away from them, you become no better than the people that they were walking away from to begin with. So anyways, thank you for watching. You know how to help the channel. Become a subscriber. Help me reach that 5,000 mark. Also, if you want to contribute other than a subscription, and you want to do a little bit more for the channel, you can always go down into the description. There's all the different ways in which you can help me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.